everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Great to be with you on this beautiful Tuesday and hope that your day is starting off in a good way. So we started a brand new teaching series yesterday, Picking the Vine, as we're looking deeper at the subject of the fruit of the Spirit. And we talked yesterday extensively about why that word is singular, but yet still there's multiple parts. And so we ended up talking about why love must come first. Well, to build that, we have to look at the message of Paul in this letter. And here, as we look back, we find him addressing some issues that had become problematic. You know, we think about that in context of everyday life. Distractions are still a major problem. Because what happens in distractions is we lose focus. We lose sight of not only where we're going, but we lose sight of our objective, our true goal, our finish line, if you will. Because as believers specifically, obviously the goal that all of us should have is to be conformed to the image of Christ and to begin to see things the way that He does, so that we can understand the value of every soul around us. We can't do that when our attention is all over the place. And so what happens is when we get off of that road, when we no longer are following or looking toward the things of God, we begin to travel other kind of roads that oftentimes lead us to selfish places, if we're just honest. Yesterday we read from verses 22 and 23, which of course from Galatians chapter 5 is the message, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, and all those things. But in order to really grasp why that is so important, and again, why love must be the first component, we have to go back just a little bit to the verses right before that to understand the value of why the fruit of the Spirit, the love, joy, peace, patience, and also why it must become a priority in our lives, and why the road that we have to take to get there is the road that can only get us there. Let me read to you we're going to read a couple of different ways today because I think this is important. Galatians chapter 5, beginning in verse 19, Paul writes, "Now the works of the flesh are obvious." Now, as we understand the way that that's written, the works of the flesh, what does that mean? What I want to do. The things that I create, the things that I manifest, the things that I am drawn toward, which in and of themselves, we're not saying you can't have opinions or thoughts or feelings or what have you, but what we have to begin to understand as we become walking with Christ, as we begin to understand the value of that relationship, does it represent Him or does it represent me? If it represents Him, am I honoring Him? If it represents me, is it taking me down a pathway that ultimately still follows the things that He has made important in my life? Or is it only satisfying me and I really don't care about anybody else? Well, let's listen to the list. Now, we'll kind of figure that out pretty quick. Paul writes, the works of the flesh are obvious. Sexual immorality. Well, now we know which road we're going down, right? Moral impurity, promiscuity, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and anything similar. Oh boy, Pastor. Now it's starting to make sense why that pathway has nothing to do with the fruit of the Spirit. And this is why Paul's saying, you're on the wrong road if this is the road that you're traveling. And he says, and I've warned you before. In other words, we've had this conversation already, which he did back in 1 Corinthians, and we could do another lesson on that. But he said, I've warned you before that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. Why? It is not the act in of itself. That's okay. We can go down the whole thing of sin and all this other stuff. We've talked about that here before too. It's really not that. It's the fact of the disobedience of I am absolutely not going to do what God asked me to do. I'm going to do it my way or no way. Well, God says, okay, you can do that, but it will not lead you to me because you're not looking for me. Does that make sense? But let's read that again. We're going to read it from the Message this time. All right. This is powerful, friends, and that's why I want to share it in two different ways. All right, so we're reading it from standard text, but I want to read it from the Message because this puts it in such a clear way that I really believe makes a case for what we're trying to teach here. And it goes, it is obvious what kind of life develops out of trying to get your own way all the time. What? Think about that. This is exactly why Paul is saying, if you're not pursuing the things of God, this is exactly where it goes. Well, I'm walking proof of that. We all are, if we're honest, because again, once we're no longer focused on the finish line and we're just focused on, hey, am I looking good? And I'm making sure we're losing our objective. Well, if our objective, again, is coming and conforming to the things of Christ and understanding the love that God has for us, therefore the love that we should have for others, thus the first part of the fruit of the Spirit, love, and then how it evolves and moves into joy and peace. I can't find that if I'm not looking for it. I can't find that if the only one that I ever see is me. And so here it says, it is obvious what kind of life develops out of trying to get your own way all the time. Repetitive, loveless, cheap sex, a stinking accumulation of mental and emotional garbage, frenzied and joyless grabs for happiness, trinket gods, magic show religion, paranoid loneliness, cutthroat competition, all consuming yet never satisfied wants. How much stuff do we pursue and it really takes up all of our time, but it never ever fulfills what we're looking for? A brutal temper, an impotence to love or be loved, divided homes and divided lives, small-minded and lopsided pursuits, the vicious habit of depersonalizing everyone into a rival. Friends, look at the division in our country right now. It's cutthroat. It's everybody against everybody. Dog eat dog. This is what we get when we pursue the things that are not of God and go down this road of selfish ambition, uncontrolled and uncontrollable addictions, ungodly, ugly parodies of community, and I could go on. And then again, as it said in the other text, this is not the first time I have warned you, if you use your freedom this way, oh man, I could go on a whole lesson on that. If you use your freedom this way, in other words, it is the gift of God. John 10:10, Jesus said, I come to give you life and it more abundantly. And it is a gift. It is yours. You can use it however you want. You can use it to please you, or you can use it to please God, which will allow you to become pleased, which will allow you to become pleasing to help others. But if it's all about you, if this is how you use your freedom, Paul says you will not inherit the kingdom of God. Now that's a lot to soak in, right? Powerful, powerful lesson as we begin to look at the why and how all of this comes about. Because it's here. It's here as we go. And I want to challenge all of you to go back and read that. Galatians chapter 5, beginning in verse 19. It's here that we see the need for a change of heart. Have to have it. We need the change of heart. It is here we see the need for the true relationship with Christ, not an acknowledgement. A lot of people say, I believe in Jesus, or I know Jesus, or knowing about Jesus, knowing Jesus, two very, very different things, because it begins to have an internal effect. And that is where we begin to understand his love, which ultimately helps us develop real love, not superficial, not how does it impact me? How does it please me? No, that sacrificial, bigger than me type place. It allows us to understand that, which ultimately allows birth to be given to joy, and the rest will begin to follow. So how important is this? Just how important is this? How much does this impact our lives? Join me back here tomorrow, and we'll start the next part of this journey as we continue making it simple, as we look at the power of this concept, this understanding of the fruit of the Spirit, and realize it is not just a cool list to be able to recite. Love, joy, peace. That's great. But what do they mean? And we're going to take that deep dive as we continue picking the vine right here at Making It Simple. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow.